that set up with a camera and a lighting and microphone and all of that, but I did it for you guys. So this one is going to be a little bit different than the other ones. The other ones were more teaching you really fun, interesting facts about genetics, and this one is a little bit more basic genetics concepts, so I think it'll kind of teach you more practical information and some basic genetics. So if you're getting ready for your 10th grade biology genetics exam, this might help you out. So yeah, we're going to be learning about like dominance and recessive traits and doing some Punnett squares and dihybrid crosses and things like that. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you'll stick around and watch me draw. Apologies, I am a lefty, so it's a little smudgy, a little, yeah. Sorry if you can't always see what I'm writing, but I hope you enjoy this. I hope you learned something. Let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, and yeah, let's get started with teaching you genetics. So the first question on this worksheet, it says, for all of the following questions, use these facts. The trait is fur color, so we're talking about fur color. Black fur is dominant over gray fur. So I talked a little bit about dominant and recessive traits, I think in my very first video, but I will go over that again because that's kind of the main thing we're going to be talking about today. So for every trait, whether it's eye color, hair color, fur color in this case, there's going to be a dominant and a recessive version of that trait. And those versions are called alleles. So you have 2 alleles for each trait. You get one allele from your mom and one allele from your dad. That word that I'm saying is allele, A-L-L-E-L-E. So you get one from your mom and one from your dad, so you have 2. Well, a dominant trait is a trait where you will show this trait even if you only have one allele for that trait. So let's say something like eye color. Brown eyes are dominant to blue eyes, and usually we use the allele B in order to talk about eye color. So you use a capital letter to talk about a dominant trait and a lowercase letter to say a recessive trait. So you get 2 alleles, one from your mom and one from your dad. So the possible combinations that we could get for eye color are these 3 combinations. So we could get 2 big B's, a big B and a small b, or 2 small b's. Well, because brown eyes is dominant and we are denoting brown eyes with the capital B, this person would have brown eyes because they have both brown eye genes. And this person would also have brown eyes because in order to have brown eyes, which is dominant, you only need one allele corresponding to brown eyes. So this person, who is called the heterozygote because they have 2 different alleles, would have brown eyes. And then this person, because they don't have any brown eye genes, would have blue eyes because they just have 2 recessive. So that's dominant and recessive. You only need one version of the allele, or one allele for the trait to show the dominant trait. So here it says that fur color is denoted by F and black is dominant over gray. So this first question says, what is the letter of the dominant allele? So the dominant one is going to be a capital F. So we learned that capital letters denote dominant traits. And the letter of the recessive allele will be lowercase f. Lowercase f. So number 3 says, write out the homozygous dominant genotype. whichever alleles that we have. So that's the genotype. And I said the word heterozygous before to talk about this person with two different alleles. So homozygous, you can probably guess, means that you have two of the same alleles. So these two people would both be homozygotes, but this one is homozygous dominant and this one is homozygous recessive. So here it says, what is the homozygous dominant genotype? So in this case, that would be capital F. Capital F. And write out the heterozygous genotype, like we learned over here. Heterozygous has two different alleles, so that would be capital F, lowercase f. And then the homozygous recessive genotype, little f, little f. Sorry if you can't really see this, I'm kind of just using it to explain to you guys, but that's okay. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit harder. So write out the genotype for gray fur. So we learned up here that black is dominant to gray. So gray is recessive, and we know that in order to have recessive traits, you must have both recessive alleles, so you can't have any dominant alleles. So we know that gray fur, because it's recessive, the only genotype that will give us gray fur is little f, little f. But here, when we're writing out the genotype for black fur, we know it's dominant, so we can either be a homozygous dominant, or we could be heterozygous, and we would still have black fur. So write the genotype for black fur. It could be big F, or big F, little f. Okay, so then the next word we're gonna learn, so we learned genotype, and we know that that is these things, so the alleles that you have. But now it's asking about the phenotype, and phenotype is what you call the actual trait. So blue eyes, brown eyes, tall, short, that's a phenotype. So this says write out the phenotype for number 3. Number 3 is homozygous dominant, so we are going to get black fur. I promise my handwriting is better than this, but and this is kind of hard to do. And then the phenotype for number 4, let's see, we have heterozygous, so we know we're still going to have black fur. And then number 5, the homozygous recessive is going to have gray. So one thing you can tell is that if you only know the phenotype, like obviously you only know that your dad has blue eyes, you know, you don't know his genotype. So if you see somebody with black fur, or an animal with black fur, you don't know if they are homozygous dominant or heterozygous. You don't know, because they will look the same. But if someone has gray fur, you know what their genotype has to be, that it has to be little f, little f. Okay, so that's the basics. Now we're going to move on to some Punnett squares. So I love me some Punnett squares. This was kind of how I fell in love with genetics, so this is nostalgic, because I loved doing Punnett squares. But okay, so we are still using for color. If the mother is homozygous recessive and the father is homozygous dominant, write out the genotype and the phenotype probabilities. So let's look at how we do a Punnett square. Okay, so mother is homozygous recessive, so do you remember what her genotype has to be? It has to be little f, little f. So mom is little f, this is our cross. That's something you usually say is like, when you're crossing two parents together, you put like the times symbol in between. But okay, so this is our Punnett square. So what you do is, up here, you are going to write the possible alleles that each parent could pass on. So remember that each parent is only going to pass on one of their alleles to the baby, and there is a 50% chance of them passing on each one that they have. So mom could pass on this one or that one, either one. So for mom, the first one she could pass on is this F. The second one she could pass on is this F. So those are the two possibilities for mom. Then for dad, we do the same thing. So he can pass on that big F or that big F. It might not really make sense when we're dealing with homozygotes because, you know, they're the same. But then, because we know that a baby has to have two copies of the gene, now we're going to figure out what our possible babies could be. So if dad passes on this big F and mom passes on this little f, we're going to get a baby that has one of each. And then we do the same thing. Now obviously this one is really simple because they're all the same. So again, this big F with that little f, we get that, and then we get that, and we get that. So those are your four possible offspring when you're just dealing with one trait, and it's a simple dominant recessive. You're always going to have four possibilities. So the genotype probabilities. So the only genotype we have here is FF. Obviously it's FF, but big F, little f. So that's the only genotype we're going to get. All of their offspring are going to have that. So we would say there's a 100% probability of the baby having that genotype. And then for phenotype, so remember phenotype is what the babies are actually going to look like. We know that all heterozygotes for fur color are going to be black because black is dominant, and we have one black allele in each baby, so they are all going to be black. 100% black. So you can see that even though mom is homozygous recessive, which means she's gray, she cannot have a gray baby. So, yeah, just something interesting. Okay. Next test cross, we've got a mother that is heterozygous. So, heterozygous, and a father that is also heterozygous. So this would actually be an example of like a normal test cross. This is what Gregor Mendel did. So the first cross, so these are our parental generation, and you cross a homozygous recessive with a homozygous dominant, and you get what's called the F1 generation. So these are F1. And then, because you know that these are all going to be heterozygotes, you cross two of them together, two F1s together, and you get the F2. So that's what we're looking at here, is the F2 generation. Okay, so again, mom can pass on a big F, or she can pass on a little f. Same thing with dad. He can pass off a big F or a little f. But then, this is where it gets fun. So now, the first baby that they can make, if mom passes off her big F and dad passes off his, now we get a baby that is Alright, so now we've brought back this parental genotype. We've brought back that homozygous dominant. Next, we could pass off these two. So we get a heterozygote, and here we also get a heterozygote. But then here, again, a fun one. If they both pass off their one recessive allele, we get a homozygous recessive child. So now we've got all these different genotypes. So the genotype probabilities, we have 3 different ones. We have big F. We have 2 babies, so 50% are big F, little f, and then 1 little f. So what we usually say is that the probability would be 1 to 2 to 1. So this is the ratio of genotypes, because we have 1, we have 2, and we have 1. So that's kind of a little shorthand that you often do in genetics, and you know that the first one is homozygous dominant, and then heterozygous, and then homozygous recessive. That's just how you do it, right? But then this is an example of where the genotype probabilities are not the same as the phenotype probabilities, because we have 3 genotypes, but we only have 2 phenotypes. We can only be black or gray. So we know from before that this homozygous dominant has to be black. These 2 also have to be black, but this one is going to be gray. So our phenotype probability would be 3 to 1. We've got 3 black and 1 gray. So that is a test cross. That is how you do a monohybrid test cross. And just something interesting, it's something that Gregor Mendel saw when he basically discovered genetics. What you see is that here we have a gray parent, mom is gray, but all of their babies, every single one, and in here we can assume that they had 200 babies, every single one is black. But then when you cross 2 black together, now you get 25% gray. So that's just interesting. You can have a gray parent and all be black, and you can have 2 black parents and have 1 be gray. So that is what Gregor Mendel saw. Okay, so let's do this last cross. We have a mother who is heterozygous, right? And a father who is homozygous dominant. Okay, so we've got mother and we've got father. So now what can they pass off? We've got a big F, big F, big F, big F, big F, little f, and big F. Oh, why was I just writing a 5? I don't know why I was writing a 5. Big F, little f. Okay, so here are genotype probabilities. We only have 2 possibilities. We can be homozygous dominant or heterozygous. So 1 to 1 is our ratio of those. And then for phenotype, again, we are all going to be black, because both the homozygous dominant and the heterozygote are going to be black. So they are all black, and that one makes a little bit more sense because both parents are black, so we get all black kids. But that's basically what happens when you have a parent that is homozygous dominant. All of their kids are going to be dominant, the dominant trait, because they can only pass on a dominant allele, and so every single one of their children is going to have a dominant pairs now instead of 4 because there are a lot more possibilities that we're going to get when we use 2 different traits. So, in this example, it looks like we are talking about the length of a giraffe's neck and its color. So 2 totally different traits, neck and color. So I don't really know why we're using T for the neck. I guess it's just like tall. I don't know. It's kind of what it stands for. But okay. So long neck, yellow giraffe. So if this parent is a heterozygote, we can see here. I'll write it bigger just in case you can't see it. But this person is big T, little t. Sorry, I said person. This is a giraffe. Okay. Big T, little t, big Y, big Y. And if they are long neck and yellow, that means that long neck and yellow must be the dominant traits because we've got a heterozygote and they have a long neck and they're yellow. So that wouldn't be possible if those were the recessive traits. But then we've got a short neck and an orange giraffe. So we know that those are recessive traits. Alright, so long dominant to short and yellow dominant to orange. So now we are going to figure out all of the possible children that they are going to have. So down here it says we're supposed to figure out long and yellow, long and orange, short and yellow, short and orange. So now we are going to set up our cross, our Punnett square. So from the mom, like I said, mom and dad are each going to pass on one version of each trait that they have, right? Obviously, they gave you one version of the eye color, one version of the hair color, all of that. So this parent has to pass on one neck length allele and one color allele separately, right? So it's not as bad as it seems. You'd kind of just have to add the 2 Punnett squares together. So first of all, for neck length, this parent can pass on the big T. And for the color, they could pass on the big Y. So that's the first combination that we'll call this mom, that mom could pass on. So what else could she pass on? She could pass on the big T and the little y. Big T and little y, so she could pass on her dominant allele for neck length and her recessive allele for color. Also, she could pass on the little t and the big Y, or both of the small ones, little t, little y. Those are all the possibilities that she could pass on, and this is assuming that we don't have something called genetic linkage, which I kind of talked about in my last video. Maybe we'll talk about that in a new video, but we are assuming that each of these traits is completely not dependent on each other. So her passing on her allele for neck length is totally independent of the body color. So for dad, pretty easy because he only has one kind of allele for each trait. So the only things that he can pass on are the recessive alleles. So he has to pass on little t, little y to every single baby. So now we're going to figure out what our 16 possible options are. So here, if this happens, we are going to get big T, little t, and big Y smudging all over the place. But okay. Little t, big Y, little y, little t, little y, big T. So because all of these are the same, each of these columns are going to be exactly the same because, like, he can only pass on each, like, that each time. So it's the mom that's determining what our genotype is going to be because she's the only one that can pass off anything that is unique. So I'm just going to fill all of this in. Takes a while. Just imagine you are me in 10th grade biology and you're trying to do this on a timed test. Really, really fun. Okay. Again, so sorry about the ridiculous smudging. Now imagine you're me and you're a lefty and you're trying to do this on a timed test. I make it sound worse than it is. It's totally fine. Okay. So those are all of our options. We've got 16 babies, 16 baby giraffes. So now, what we can see, we know that any heterozygotes or homozygous dominants are going to be long and yellow. But here we don't have any homozygous dominants because dad can only pass on recessive. But let's look at each column because we know they're all the same. So this column are both heterozygotes, so heterozygous for each trait. So this is easy because it's the exact same genotype that the mom has. So we know it has to be long neck and yellow. Next, we can then look at this one. So all of these babies have the same genotype as dad. So we know they have to be short neck and orange. But then these are where you get what we might call a recombinant genotype or phenotype, where the babies are different than the mom or the dad. So if we have big T, we're gonna have a long neck, but little y, we're gonna be orange. So these are long neck and orange. Here we have the opposite. Little t is going to give us a short neck, but big Y, little y is going to make us yellow. But here, this is pretty easy. Our possible phenotypes, we have 4 of each. Because I just went through that. 4 of each. I guess I should have written ones here because, like, you're supposed to reduce the ratio, but oh well, it doesn't matter. Okay, next we're going to do this one. So we've got a fast red fox and a slow gray fox. So again, we know that fast and red must be dominant because this guy's got some big capital letters. So let's see. Okay, big F, little f, big R, and then slow and gray must be. Sorry, my camera ran out of storage, but little f, little r is going to be slow and gray, so we know that those are the recessive traits. So they didn't give us a whole lot of room to write our possible genotypes, but that's okay, we will make do. So mama can pass on big F, big R. Okay. The other option, she's always gonna pass on a big R. So big F, big R is our other option. They're the same. And then little f, big R, or little f, big R. So yeah, she can only pass on the big R. And then here, it's kind of the same going to be the same, and these are going to be the same. So here we've got heterozygotes. And this one is going to be the exact same, so I don't feel like writing it, so these are going to be the exact same. And then here we've got little f, little f, big R, little r, little f, big R, little r, little f, big R, big R, little f, big R, big R. Okay, and these are going to be the same as that. So here we can see that all of these 8 are going to be fast and red because they have a dominant allele for each of the traits, whereas over here they're still going to be red because we've got this dominant R, but they are going to be slow. So because mom is homozygous dominant for this color trait, she can only pass on that allele, and all of these kids, every single kid they have is going to be red, but because she's heterozygous, she can pass on either of these alleles, and so they will get half fast and half slow children. So yeah, but you can't get any gray ones, so you won't get any fast and gray or slow and gray. So yeah, that is a dihybrid cross. Over our next dihybrid cross worksheet, we've got a word problem. So it's not that scary, it's just like genetics. I'll write out the genotypes, but it is kind of a terrifying sounding word problem. I didn't know this. So carrion beetles lay their eggs in dead animals and then bury them in the ground until they hatch. Assume that the preference for fresh meat is dominant to the preference for rotted meat, and that the tendency to bury the meat shallow is dominant to the tendency to bury the meat deep. Suppose a female carrion beetle is homozygous dominant for both traits and mates with a homozygous recessive male for both traits. What will be the genotype of the F1 generation? So that's a term I taught you before, that these are the parents, and then we're going to get the F1 generation here. Okay, so let's look at what our genotypes are. So mom is homozygous dominant for both the traits, so she is going to be big F, big F, big S, big S, and she is going to prefer fresh meat and the tendency to bury it shallow. I don't know why they had to do such like a morbid example, but and then dad is homozygous recessive, so he's little f, little f, little s, little s. So this one is kind of boring. We'll kind of just skip through it kind of quickly because the mom and the dad can only pass on one combination of allele each because like they only have one kind of allele for each trait. So the mom is always going to pass off the big F and the big S. So that's what she is going to give to every child. And similarly, the dad can only give little f, little s, little f, little s, little f, little s, little f, little s. So all of these 16 are going to be the same because they can each only pass off one thing. And so what we're going to get for every single square is going to be big F, little f, big S, little s. I hope you don't blame me for not wanting to write that 16 times. So I didn't. But so every child that they're going to have is going to be heterozygous for both are going to have the dominant traits because they have one dominant allele. So all of the children are going to prefer the fresh meat and to bury shallow. So they will all have the same phenotype as mom, but not the same genotype as either of their parents. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit more fun. So now it's asking for the genotypic ratio of the F2 generation. So I taught you that this is F1, and then F2 is when we cross two of the F1 progeny together. We get F2. So these are beetles. I don't think it counts as incest when we're talking about beetles. But yeah, okay. But we are kind of meeting brothers and sisters, so they are both going to be big F, little f, big S, little s. So that is going to be our test cross. So now let's look at what each parent can pass on. So, mom, what can she pass on? A big F and a big S. Okay. She could also pass on a big F and a little s, and then a little f and a big S, or a little f, little s. So all of the combinations that she could pass on are all different, so that's kind of fun. But the dad, he is also going to pass on these exact 4 combinations because he has the exact same genotype as mama. Okay, big F, big, oh, I messed that up, okay. This big F, little s, and then this is going to be little f, big S, and little f, little s. Forgive me for messing up. Just gonna write, yay, I love genetics. Okay, so now, what are the possible progeny that we can have in this F2 generation? So, if mom and dad both pass off both dominant alleles, we are going to get a fully homozygous dominant child. So that's the first genotype. Next, let's do this one. So they each have big F. So we are going to be homozygous dominant for that, but then big S and little s. There. Okay, so that's what we get. Here, we are going to have big F, little f, and big S, big S. Okay, next, we are going to be heterozygous for both of those traits. So then it's going to be the same going across, like we're going to get the same options. So here we're going to get big F, big S, little s. So that's going to be the same as this one. Just depends which parent is passing off which allele. Here we're going to get big F, and little s, okay, and then big F, little f, big S, little s. So that is the same. Yeah, that's the same as that. Okay, and then big F, and little s, So now we've got our first totally heterozygote. Okay, here, big F, little f, S. So that's what we've got down here. Okay. And big S, little s. Then we have little f. So that's our first homozygous. Recessive for the F. And then little f, big S, little s. Sorry if you can't see this because, again, lefty. Okay, and then the last row, big F, big S, little s, big F, little s, little f, big S, little s. And then the very last one, if both parents happen to pass on their recessive traits, we get all little f, little s. Okay, so now we are going to look at what our genotypic and phenotypic ratios are. Okay, so let's write down what all the different genotypes that we see are. So the first one we've got is this one, which is big F, big F, big S, big S. And we only have one of those. That's the only one. So we'll write a 1. 1. Okay, what's the next genotype that we can get? Big F, and big S, little s. So this one is going to have the same phenotype as the first one, because they still get both dominant traits, but now they have a different genotype. Okay, so where do we see that one? We see it right here. Big F, and big S, little s, I think. That is the only time that we see that. Okay. So we have 2 of those. Next one, we've got big F, little f, and big S, So that's our other one where we've got 1 homozygous dominant and then 1 heterozygous. So where do we see that? We see it right here. And we also see it right there. So we have 2 of those. Okay. The next one that we see is big F, and little s, and we see that right there. But we are only going to get that one time. There's only one chance that we are going to get that. Next, okay, now I'm losing track of what I've already done, which is kind of funny. But we can be heterozygous for both traits. Little f, big S, little s, and we've got that one twice, but then we also have it, so we've got 4 times, right? Because every time that we get one of each, we are going to get that genotype. So we get that one 4 times. Okay, what is our next genotype? So now we're getting little f, big S. So we only get that one time again, just like the reverse of it, which was right here. Next, okay, let's see, we've got this guy. Little s, and let's look for that one. We get it there as well. So we've got 2 of those. And then the reverse of that, let's see, now I'm lost. Okay, this one, little f, and then big S, little s. So that's the one we get right there, and we also get it here. So we have 2 of those. And then the last one is the totally homozygous recessive. Okay, so that is super complicated. I don't think I ever had to do that in school. genotypes don't matter as much as phenotypes. So let's think about what our phenotypes would be. So we only have 4 possible phenotypes, right? So we can be the fresh meat and shallow. So let's look for which ones would prefer fresh meat and to bury the meat shallow. So this guy would, right? Because he's got a dominant for each one. This guy would. He's got a dominant for each one. This one also does. At least one dominant, that's what we're looking for. This one does not. It does not have a dominant S. This one does. We've got one of each. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, because we have these 2 guys. 4, 5, right? 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so those are the ones that are going to have at least one dominant allele for each trait. So we have 9 out of the 16. So that's our first phenotype. 9. What's our next phenotype? So next, let's go down the list. So the next one that we have here is the preference for fresh meat, but the preference to bury deep, right? So we're dominant and then we're recessive. So we have this one, but we also have this genotype. Okay, so they're heterozygous and then they're homozygous. So that one and these 2 would be 3. So we've got 3 possible genotypes for that, or 3 possible progeny. Okay, next we've got the preference for rotted meat, but the preference for burying shallow. So that's going to be the opposite, so we're actually going to get the exact same likelihood. So here, I know my S's are all wonky. I hate working with S's because the little ones look the same as the big ones, which sucks, but so this one is going to be that phenotype, that one, and then this one also homozygous recessive, but then heterozygous. So again, we have 3. Okay, and then what is our very last genotype, or very last phenotype? It is rotted meat and burying it deep. And the only one that has that is this one totally homozygous recessive one. And so we get 1. So that is what you get. 9 to 3 to 3 to 1 is your phenotypic ratio for the F2 progeny, F2 generation. Yeah, that's what you get, and those should add up to 16. So you've got 9, 3, 16. So that is all of our possible progeny, and I was basically just explaining how you get there, but I don't know, if you're on a test, a lot of times it'll just ask you, like, what would you expect the ratio for the F2 progeny to be, and you kind of just memorize that that's what it's going to be, because you know if you've got 2 homozygous, a dominant and a recessive, your F1 will be all heterozygous, and your F2, you're going to get this ratio. So you don't actually have to do this every time, but yeah, unless you have kind of a mean teacher and they make you do it every time. But yeah, so I think I am going to stop there. I actually had a couple of other worksheets that I was going to do, but I think this video has been long enough, so I'm going to include those in a different video. But yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed learning about dominant and recessive traits and doing some monohybrid and dihybrid crosses. I hope that was interesting. I hope you learned something. I hope it wasn't too boring. I don't know. And I hope that I explained it well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Now you know how this works. You can apply it to anything. So like eye color and hair color, you know, if both your parents have blue eyes and blonde hair, try figure out what the possible children are, you know? So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope it was interesting, and I will see you guys next time.